Hi, YouTube. I hope you're all doing well. I'm doing pretty good. I got a birthday card from my youngest son. Well, there was actually three of them in here, but and there was a return address with no zip code on it. And I tried to reverse look it up. He said, asked me if I'd call him, but his phone's been shut off or the number's been changed. So I don't know. I tried to spend a considerable amount of time trying to find him, maybe at least an hour and a couple different times earlier today, and I just couldn't do it. So um I ended up looking up what the Ides of March is. I thought I knew what it was and I kind of did, but it's some of you probably know from the um, Roman calendars, it used to be considered the 74th day of the year or the first new moon of the year, typically in between the 13th and the 15th. And Shakespeare wrote a play, Beware of the Ides of March, about Julius Caesar, because in 44 BCE he was stabbed to death in public, like out in front of a crowd, and even one of his seers had warned him about it, but he ended up dying. So that's where that comes from when they say beware of the Ides of March, or it being like a um, spiritually dark days. Well, spiritually dark days for people um, between the 13th and the 15th. So yeah, that's basically in short that's and there was a lot of like Roman language to go along with it, and I looked it up in Wikipedia and I thought about reading it to everybody, but that's the long and the short of it. I am going to share a video JP reacts on. He put a compilation of natural women in competition in their own sports, having to compete about against men, and court cases that have gone on that these men have won, leaving women vulnerable to their strength that does overpower women. And it's just thoroughly disgusting, and I think it really has to be addressed. Oh, they're so worried. Well, what about the guy that's pretending to be a woman when his feelings will get hurt? Well, what about the women that are being trashed and dumped to the side because of these men? And when they're talking about them, they don't talk about it as gender. They say sex, like the other sex or something. And like JP had pointed out, these men had testosterone, which is a performance enhancing drug, naturally in their body for many, many years, if not decades, before they choose to inhibit that situation. So, actually, what they had in their body to give them the upper hand physically against women. And I'm going to show you these women that are being literally beat the shit out of, physically beat on by men, where they'd have no typical way to actually defend themselves. And this is going on in our world, and it's going to get a lot worse if people don't stand up for the truth and what is right out here. Just because the Biden administration is helping these people with um, mentally emotional issues, take over what is typically meant for a woman's arena in their own sport just because these people think it's okay. It is not okay, you know? So, so anyway, I thought I'd touch on that one more time. Pretty sad. Oh, we have a beautiful day here today. It's 41 degrees and it's supposed to maybe rain later tonight or maybe snow. I don't know. If we get snow, we're really gonna have a lot of it around here. Well, any moisture right now is going to be excess, which maybe isn't a really big deal, but oh, I hurt last night bad from that shoveling. Yeah, it was hard, but I did my exercises today and then walked down to my mailbox and haven't done a whole too much more than that right now today, but I have plans to get some stuff done after I make this video. So I thought I'd do that first and hopefully I won't get cut off. If I do, I'll probably leave it there and because I'm pretty much just chatting, you know. So yeah, all my kitties outside are doing great. They're healthy and happy. And I know like the deers in my state are probably suffering right now because when the snow gets this steep, the die off for the deer is pretty bad. The rabbits, they'll suffer too, but maybe not as bad because they have snowshoes. They can walk on top of the snow with their large back feet. It helps it spread it out instead of sinking through the snow. It acts like a snowshoe, well, like the snowshoe rabbit. If you're familiar with those, have enormously big. I used to breed rabbits, but they have really big back feet. So I bred a breed of rabbit called satins. So I had one. My first rabbit was Hada. That's Swedish for rabbit. So, and then I got Snowball, and he was a giant Flemish, one of them like 3 foot long, big white bunny. And then I started breeding them, so they were actually half Flemish, half satin. So, and oddly enough, they carried the mother's genes, and none of them were the giant Flemish. They all turned out like the satins, just a regular size, tiny, um, regular rabbit. So she walked on a leash, and, or wait now, no. Hada was my third rabbit. I had, oh no. Yeah, yes, I had Toby, and then Bleach, well, and then Hada, and Snowball, and a bunch of babies. So uh, a lot of them did walk on leashes, which is really hard to teach a bunny how to do that, but you can. It's just like I had one, um, Jack, and he used the litter box with my kitty that I had at the time, and they would play, and he got along with my dog, and um, he knew like through his lifetime, he knew 3 different cats and 2 different dogs, and they all got along with him, and he got along with them too. In fact, my one cat used to go in his cage because I could leave his door open and he wouldn't come out on it. I made a porch for him too in the house. He was a house bunny, and she would go in there and drink his water just to irritate him, but she would step on his head just to show her dominance. But she never hurt him. I scolded her. I said, and even if he'd turn around and act like he was going to bite her or something, I'd just tell him no, and they wouldn't do it. So I could actually leave the door of my rabbit's house open, and he wouldn't jump out, and the cats wouldn't hurt him either, or the dog. When the dog was a baby, I put her in a little enclosed place by the rabbit, and she would kind of bark at him at first, and I told her not to do that, that it was naughty. And then after a while, she just stopped doing it. I said, give him a kiss, and she'd give him a kiss, and that's how it all began, them getting along like that. So, yeah. Yeah, they were good animals. But yeah, he walked on a leash too, my last bunny. Um, I could walk him down the driveway. He had a little collar and a leash, and I'd just tell him jump, and then or wait, or stop, and that's how we would walk. And you had to be careful because if they um, would jump and you didn't have enough leash for them, they could end up like breaking their necks. So it's something that you have to know the jumping pattern of your rabbit, and they will even zigzag and stuff. So I mean, you have to teach them how to walk on a leash. It's not something you can't just put a collar on a bunny and take it for a walk. It's not that easy. So same with my baby deer. She walked on a leash too. So till she got big, and I taught her how to hide from vehicles and jump over fences and how to graze and do different things because she didn't have a mommy. She got abandoned, um, and then let her loose into the wild. So, where she ended up getting shot, I think, but not because she went near people, but because they had scopes on powerful long rifles. So, yeah, she was a cool animal. Absolutely cool. I had an Irish setter, a Manx kitty, and my baby deer, and they'd start chasing each other around the house, and I'd sit on the porch and I'd watch them. And after a while, you couldn't tell who was chasing who, and then they'd switch positions and switch it up. And I was working on this one ranch that was in a valley in between, well, like up by Montana and Canada, up by what's called the Bob Marshall Wilderness. It was really incredibly beautiful out there. On my porch, I could see the Belt Mountains and the Bob Marshall Mountains. So it's incredible area. So that was a really good job, good place to live for a while. Boy, that was a long time ago. I was 17. you know, that's the same year I got in a car accident. Excuse me, I gotta fix my light. Yeah, I knew it was gonna do that. Just a minute. Yeah, I got in a car accident and I pulled my spinal cord. Come on now. And yeah, I couldn't walk. They told me I'd never walk again. But they were wrong. I'm pretty determined when I put my mind to something. But yeah, that was rough. A lot of you have heard that story before of how I struggled to even walk again. But I did, and pretty grateful for that. But last night after that shoveling, I had cramps so bad. I was almost in tears. I was begging God for help. I'm serious. I went out and hung around on my counter out in the kitchen for a while because I thought if I stood up, sometimes the cramps will alleviate a little bit. And I took some aspirins, went out there, got a drink of water, and hung around there for a minute. And it was still hurting. Then I come back and I laid back down, and they they started up again. And it's not one of it's not a cramp that you can like smack it or something. Like sometimes if you just bring circulation into the place where you're cramping up, it might help, but this isn't like that. If you try and do that, it seems to kind of make it worse. And that'll happen if I eat like onions or potatoes, but it could have been even part of my diet last night. I had corn dogs and some cheese puffs, and I'm allergic to corn. But corn hasn't done that to me before, not that I know of. So I'm assuming it could have been the shoveling because I've had some like sciatic nerve damage and a hip damage and a separated pelvis and different things. And um, I have a area on the front of my leg about that big around that's damaged and part of the bone is missing. And it was that leg that was affected. So but I wasn't really hurting while I was shoveling or anything aside from, getting tired because the it was heavy. Hey, I should have called one of them Tran guys to come over and help me. But then they would just look at me and say, "You're a woman too. You can do it." That's probably what I'd hear out of them. Or, "Do you want to fight? Because I know I can beat you," they'll say to me. And I'll look at them and say, "Yeah, most likely you probably would." You know, putting lipstick on and still looking like Penelope off of Eek the cat. Have you ever seen Eek the cat's friend? I think her name is Penelope or Petunia or something. Just very, very large girl cat with this red lipstick on, and you can't really tell it's a girl cat. The way she treats Eek, it's kind of an older cartoon. Probably I'm thinking my kids were pretty little when that came about, so I'm thinking it was probably about maybe the mid 80s, somewhere around in there. So yeah, pretty sad though. I really do feel bad for the women in the world now, the girls coming up that have to compete against men for women's positions in things. That's that's disturbing. I mean, I hate to get forceful and say what I do or what I wouldn't do, but I'll tell you what, if one of them men hurt one of my grandchildren, all granddaughters, I'd be tempted to do something to them. There are men out here that hate women that are pretending to be women because they think we have it easier and then they want to kill us and beat us up. Is that easier? I mean, everybody, like JP said, everybody was put on this planet by a woman and they're sacred, and that sacredness is being taken away. And I personally am insulted. And I'm sure some other women, actual real females, are in fear of the men that are acting like this. It is scary for them. Don't you understand that? Take a look around. You know, it's okay if you've never actually been afraid in your life, or if you've never been alone, or if you've never been undefended, or um, never felt protected or anything like that. Maybe you're used to it. It's a little different than actually feeling like you should be cherished, especially in your own communities, and girls aren't going to be. Yeah, that really does it. It more than disturbs me. It fucking pisses me off. Yeah, it does. And I'm not going to call these men women, not effing ever. I'm not calling them he, she, them, they, not fucking nothing. You are who you were born. Get a grip. And I do mean a goddamn grip. I mean, certain things happen to all of us in our lives. Does not give us an excuse to put that on other people. And that's just what these men are doing. And people that are confused and they're these in between non-gender, take your bullshit somewhere else, you know, for real. There is a thing called a gentleman and gentlewomen, ladies and gentlemen, you know, not the combo package. It's more than disturbing. I'm sure the little girls coming up that want to be little girls are disturbed, but they can't express it. How would they ever be able to? How can you go up to an adult man dressed like a woman and say, why are you doing this? You know, what is your purpose? What's your intention? What do you hope to gain out of this? Like competing in women's weightlifting when they can, on average, lift twice as much or more than a woman. What do they hope to gain by beating women in their own arena? Well, it's called the elimination of the sacred feminine. That's what it's called. That's it right there. And the women that want to feel protected and um, sacred are more than willing, most likely, to honor their own mother and father and honor their own father in heaven and not mix his gender and stand firm on that like I do, you know. And I expect the same out of the men out here on this planet. You start standing up for your daughters and your mothers and your aunts and your sisters. Just do it. Don't play with these pronouns, with these mental cases. There's not a lot of people that are studying or experts in psychology that are playing this game with these people, but they aren't speaking up very loudly either. There's a few. There's like Jordan Peterson. Um, well, that's probably about all I can think of right now, as a matter of fact. But there might be others. But I know there's people in like counseling and different areas that know that it actually is a mental illness. You know, it's not because I've got part of a man in me or they've got part of a woman in them. No, they do not. It's like my cheekbones. I resemble my father. Um, my height. I resemble my father. That doesn't mean I'm half of my dad. I'm a woman. God made me one individual person. I'm a woman. Always have been, always will be. And that's who our souls are. We are. And you know what? When they say the angels were sexless in heaven, that's not gender. That means sexless, without sex, not without gender. People like to just take whatever they read and twist it for their benefit. If it's going to cause confusion and they're evil and they have evil intent, that's what's going on and that's what they are. And that's the word that describes it. It's not funny or cute or fashionable or any of this. They're confused a lot of the times, or they're evil. I would say if they're younger and it's kind of a fad and the confusion comes into play and your hormones and wanting to connect with other human beings, there's a lot of things going on in the world that feed into this sickness that is hurting our youth. So, I mean, they're not hurting me, you know, but it does bother me. Yeah, I don't have to be bothered, no. But I choose to say something because I want my granddaughters to know how their grandmother feels about this. And I want their mothers to know how I feel about this and why. Because someday a man's going to beat the shit out of your little girl, her beautiful face. They're going to bust it all up like they did mine. And they aren't going to care because they're going to pretend that they bleed once a month just like you do. And I think all men that beat on women or have urges to beat on women are mentally ill, no matter what form it takes. Or they have severe drug problems. That could be it too, or a mixture of both. But something's going on. And these people, not only do they need to be psychoanalyzed before we put them in positions of leadership before our little girls, yeah, psychoanalyzed. But I mean, to put people in positions of power just because they identify of, as something that they're not. And that is an all around sad thing going on in our world. Like I said, it's not funny, it's not cute, it is a sickness, and I'm going to stand firm on that. And it really has nothing to do with religion at this point, although I could bring that into it too. It has to do with the physical ramifications that are going to happen to the girls in the future because of the shit that's going on today in our society that people are not speaking about in in mass like we should be. Make it known that you don't approve. Make your voice heard for those girls. That's what you're there for, men, you know. Yeah, those girls would turn around and protect you too, but they shouldn't be doing that first. You should be leading the situation and then they'll follow suit. That's how it goes. So, well, I'm going to leave it here. You know, until it stops, I'm not going to stop. That's just the way it is. So I hope you all have a really beautiful night or day wherever you're at. Peace and love from Pine City, Minnesota, USA.